It's time for Banter, a sports show that discusses and debates today's and yesterday's athletes. Who's the greatest boxer? Who's the greatest football player? Who's the greatest baseball player? Let's talk about that and more going on in the sports world now on Banter. Here's your host, Eli Winfrey.
Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of Banter. I am your host, Elijah Winfrey, or you can call me Eli. I'm excited to be with you today. It is a beautiful day in the Pacific Northwest. As a matter of fact, when I'm done with the show, I begin my workout routine, and part of that routine today, and it looks like moving forward, will be a nice walk along a trail in my neighborhood once I get back home. It's going to be a beautiful day. A lot of things to do. Busy weekend for me. I'm excited. Mother's Day weekend. I hope all of you are doing something for your mom, and you're thinking about her, and blessing her and letting her know that you are loved and she's a special person in your life. So my weekend is busy. My past weekend was pretty busy as well, but very productive. Got some things done. I am excited about my upcoming book signing next Saturday. I am going to do the show before I head to Seattle to do that. So I encourage you all that are in the area to stop by the Burnt Coffee Company and check it out. Just pop in and say hi, and let's talk for a bit. I'll talk about my children's book, what motivated me to do it. Talk about my nonprofit and the work that we do in the community, and just have a cup of coffee. You know the deal. It's exciting. Today, I am going to answer a couple of email questions. My producer, Greg Nice, always goes through the email bag, and he pulled out a couple of real good questions that we're going to answer today. I'm going to start. Before I say this, I'm going to say that we are going to talk a little bit about Major League Baseball. We've seen enough games now to start, having opinions about certain teams and where they're going, and we're going to get to that momentarily. I want to start in the NBA, though, because, believe it or not, the playoffs this year, they've been incredible. I have to say that. They've been, it's surprising to a degree to see some of the teams that are moving forward. As much as I love the Knicks, I didn't expect them to play as well as they have. Although they did lose last night in a tough game. They were in control for most of it. From what I saw, there's been a lot of critique and criticism of Thibodeau, the Knicks coach, and the way he plays his players. There's some who think he runs them into the ground because they play extended minutes. Tom Thibodeau he's an old school type of coach. If you're available and you can contribute, you're going to play. I like his style of coaching. I don't see anything wrong with it. I think he's putting the Knicks in positions they haven't been in for a long, long time. And a lot of these players are bought in. And New York when New York is playing well, it benefits the NBA. And I think they're going to win this series against Indiana. I do believe that. I think New York is that type of team that will continue to grind it out, and they'll wear you down, and you see some of that. I wasn't surprised that Indiana won last night. I figured that they're going to win a couple of games. I think it's important for the Knicks to kind of bounce back. I think they play tomorrow. And I think you will see a bounce back effort. The Denver Nuggets, they made a statement as well last night. A 27-point blowout in Minnesota. I didn't expect a blowout. I thought the Nuggets would be competitive and maybe he got a win. Although there's a friend of mine that I chat with from time to time, and we're following these playoffs, and we both thought that what we were seeing out of the Minnesota Timberwolves were the 96 Bulls. I was wrong. I was wrong. You know how you become prisoner of the moment and you go along because it sounds good and you're like, yeah, they are the 96 Bulls reincarnated. No, they're not. They're not. They're a really good team. I did pick them to go to the NBA Finals. I'm gonna hold firm because I do think they'll win the next game. They'll win Game 4. I think Minnesota came out flat. They didn't look as engaged, and Anthony Edwards basically admitted to that. He had no energy. He let the team down, and this is what I like about Anthony Edwards. This is why I'm becoming more of a fan of his. Like he takes ownership in it. He doesn't throw anybody under the bus. He doesn't critique his players in front of the media. He takes it on himself. He didn't play well. He owned that. And you saw the defending champions in the Denver Nuggets reassert themselves last night. Nikola Jokic had 24 points, 14 rebounds, 9 assists, 3 steals, and 3 blocks. Doesn't get any better than that. That's your MVP. And I'm going to get to that in a moment. Because Shaq had some things to say. And you all know I am not the biggest Shaq fan. I think Shaq does a lot in the community. And I love that about Shaq. But I think Shaq is a bully. I've always felt that way. I haven't changed on that stance. You see it on the set of TNT at times, and I'm going to get into that in just a second because I do feel a way about it. But I'm congratulations to the Nuggets. They played a hell of a game. Jamal Murray rebounded and played well. As he was being cascaded with boos. And, I don't know how the next game's going to go, but I do see the Timberwolves winning that game and putting the pressure back on the Nuggets. But it was entertaining from the Nuggets standpoint. They looked together, more together. They looked extremely focused. And that's what champions do when you get punched in the face. What's your plan? Then, now what? Mike Tyson once said, everybody's got a plan till you get punched in the face. And it stings a little bit. Do you fall down? And if you do you get up and punch back? The Nuggets got up and they punched back. Can they sustain that? Same with the Boston Celtics. They got punched in the face. I didn't expect Cleveland to go in there and beat them as badly as they did. But again, this is my thing with Boston. They're up, then they're down. They have a lot of energy, and then there's no energy. They make a lot of threes, and then they don't make a lot of threes. I'm not saying that the Cavaliers are going to win the series. But I am saying that Boston isn't as complete as we think they are. And I know everybody's calling for them to be the favorite, and they should win the championship this year. That's what they're saying, the media. I just don't buy into that. I think they're a really good team, but they can be vast. They can be very inconsistent. Jason Tatum tends to defer in the big moments. Jaylen Brown isn't. I don't think he's that go-to guy in certain situations. They're extremely talented, but I'm not going to say that they're the clear-cut favorite. And they got to do better in Game 3. I think they will. You know, they haven't lost in the playoffs yet on the road. I do think that will change, but they need a bit more consistency. And I think sometimes some of these players, they worry about the outside noise too much. In all honesty, all athletes do. I've had that issue myself. Playing golf, you hear people talking, and sometimes you fall prey to that or fall victim to that. You got to find a way to be better. They will be. The Mavericks rebounded, and they beat the OKC Thunder. That series is tied. That's going to be a really good series to watch. I think Shea Alexander is phenomenal. I think OKC will bounce back. It'll be a much better game. I think Luka and Kyrie are going to be hard to beat in a 7-game series, because I don't know if OKC has enough experience, but I wouldn't be shocked if they found a way to pull it off. I think Kyrie's been there, so he knows about these big moments. He knows how to settle the team down. I think he's a good fit for Luka in that way. They were a bit out of sorts last year, and I think this year they're a bit more connected. I think when one starts, the other kind of hangs back for a second, and then in the second half, you see Kyrie or Luka assert themselves. When they move the ball, they're a scary team. When it's just Luka and he's at the top of the key and he's dribbling, and then he steps back and shoots a 3, I don't know if they can consistently win that way. But when they move the ball, you see what they can do. I expect OKC to come out in Game 3 and play better. I don't think they're going to miss shots. And that's the thing. They missed a lot of open shots. I just wish, as I said, I wish that they would shoot more mid-range jump shots and not be so dependent on the 3. Like, that's what I feel like they need to think about and work on. I'm not saying abandon the 3, but man, step in and take some of the mid-range shots that are there. It makes it easier. It opens up the game. It opens up the lane. But, you know, what do I know? What do I know? So it's fun following the playoffs. I think it's been great. It's been exciting, and you know, I've seen things that I didn't think I was going to see out of some new teams that are there. So I really like it. This MVP talk, you know, congratulations to Nikolai Jokic, a.k.a. the Joker, for winning the MVP once again. And Shaq had some things to say about that, and he kind of felt like Shea Alexander should have won it. And look, I as I said before, whoever won it deserved it. I'm not mad that the Joker won it. I wouldn't have been mad if Shea would have won it. I think the knock on the Joker is that he's not exciting. He's cut more from the Tim Duncan cloth than anything. I don't mind that. I like it a lot. And Shaq had a bit of an issue with it. And he and Shannon Sharp are going back and forth. And listen, I hate to see it. I don't want to see two brothers go back and forth like this. I think it's unnecessary. I think Shannon was kind of responding to what Shaq was saying. And again, we all have opinions. There are a lot of opinionaires in the world. We're part of that, believe it or not. I just think sometimes with Shaq, he tends to want to make his points from a bullying standpoint, where he tends to get loud and talk over you and cut you off, and then he's upset. And I just have a hard time with that when I'm watching the guys. And I know that they all love each other. And I know, they say Shaq means well, and I'm sure he does. I don't really care for it. And I try to tune him out as much as I can because I just can't deal with it. But I just thought that, it's his opinion. I do think that he I don't know if it's a bit of jealousy with Shaq, but that's what he's there for, to give his honest take, and he did that, whether we like it or not, and I don't like it. All right, I'm going to pivot to Major League Baseball before I answer some of these fantastic questions. We've seen enough games, or I have thus far, and yes, folks, I do watch Major League Baseball. It's my first love. I do. I love it. I think based on what I've seen, and I'm looking at the standings right now, I'm not surprised at where some of these teams are. I kind of figured that this is where it's going to be. I will start though with the Seattle Mariners, and I am very impressed by their record and where they are right now. They're a half game out behind Texas. Texas is sitting at 22-18. The Mariners are 21-18. And I'm happy that they are playing some really consistent ball. And this is what I said at the beginning of the year. I wanted to see the Mariners come out and be consistent out of the gate. I'm not saying they had to go 30 and 3 or something like that. I'm just saying stay with the leaders in your division. Stay there, because in the summer months or late summer, now you're in prime position to pull off a trade and make a run, because they always seem to go on these long runs, and they win these games. They win a bunch of games in late summer. And if you position yourself now to be in a position to run off the same amount of wins in late summer, you're going to be right there, if not 5-6 games ahead coming down the home stretch. So I am extremely happy with their play. I knew Texas would be right there. The Oakland A's have surprised me, and so have the Houston Astros. I didn't see Houston falling off as much as they did, but they have. And, I'm wondering if they're going to be players in the trade deadline, because I don't think they're only 7 games out, but I'm just not sure what direction Houston is headed in. The Cleveland Guardians, Minnesota Twins, Kansas City Royals, even the Detroit Tigers. That's a really good division right there. They're all within 4.5 games of each other. I didn't expect this division to be lopsided, so this is right where I think these teams were going to be. And it's I think I pull for the Twins just because of their talent. Cleveland is always consistent; they're always there, so I'm not surprised with that. Kansas City, they have talent as well. I didn't see them being, a half game out. But again, we're still relatively early, but we've seen enough to know, like, okay, these teams are asserting themselves as a threat as we head into the summer. In the American League East, it's the same players. The Orioles were in first place by half a game over the Yankees. The Red Sox are 6.5 back. The Rays are 7 back. The Blue Jays are 8.5 back. So, the East, the American League East tends to go on a run here in the summer. And I think we'll see the Blue Jays kind of mount, a run here. The Red Sox are still finding themselves. The Yankees have found themselves, and I think they are doing really well. And despite of Aaron Judge's play, he's not hitting for average right now. He has quite a bit of strikeouts. Giancarlo Stanton is, I think, 229, 230, something like that. So his average is up. But again, I think if not for Juan Soto in that lineup, they're struggling. There's your MVP of the team thus far. It's Juan Soto. And I think the Yankees will be there. They'll pull off a move before the trade deadline. And I think they've been consistent. So I will give them that. So all you Yankee fans, there's your praise. That's your praise. In the National League, my Atlanta Braves are 2 games out. And, they struggled here of late, but they've since run off 3 wins in a row. The Phillies are going to be the team that they're going to have to get past, especially in the playoffs, if they want to get back to the World Series, because it just seems like in the postseason, the Phillies have their number. The Nationals, the Mets, the Marlins, they're kind of where I thought they would be. The Marlins continue to be a disappointment. I don't know what direction they are going in. And you wonder how many of these teams are about winning. Are we about winning, or do we just want to put just a product out there just to be relevant? And I think the Miami Marlins, they really need to do some soul searching. The Brewers, the Cubs, the Reds. I'm surprised that the Cardinals are in the basement in the National League Central. I thought they'd be a bit better. But the main players, the Cubs and the Brewers, are right there. And I think anytime the Cubs are in contention, it's great for the sport. The Dodgers are the Dodgers. I think that's the team that everybody's projected to go to the World Series simply because Shohei Ohtani's in that lineup, and it makes them formidable. The Padres are playing. They're up and down this year. They're 5.5 games back of the Dodgers. I think I just got to see a little bit more out of the Padres. Gosh, they got talent. And I think sometimes they just don't know what to do with it. And I'm rooting for them. I'm hoping summer does them right. So there's my take on Major League Baseball right now. And by summer, we'll really know the contenders from the pretenders. So stay tuned on that. All right. Let's pivot now to some of these amazing email questions you sent in. Shout out to my producer, Greg Nice, for putting these questions together. We always love having them on the show. And for those who don't know, Greg Nice is also the producer of my other show, The Elijah Winfrey Show. He's on it all the time. So shout out to him. All right. Each week I tell you all to send questions in to me at elijah.winfrey@gmail.com, and you never, ever disappoint. So let's get to some of these amazing questions. This first question is from Erica in Seattle, Washington. And Erica writes, Eli, what do you make of the Patrick Beverley fan incident? Was the 4-game suspension too light? Yes, it was too light. I would have suspended him for the whole year. And that would have been too excessive. But I would have. Here's the thing about that. Like, I think it was a punk move. I think it was a sucker move. You don't throw a ball into the stands and it hits someone by accident. And in this case, it hit a female, and I can promise you, she has a lawyer. He's going to see that letter. It hurts the league when that happens. And again, this is where I talk about win with grace, lose with class. This is something I try to instill in my son. You know, my son's running track. He is going to try out for basketball this year. He's a 7th grader, going to be in 8th grade. And we talk about sportsmanship. You're not going to win every time. Show some class when you don't. I'm not saying you can't be mad and upset and frustrated and want time to yourself or need time to yourself to process things. But don't throw things into the stands. I don't care what they're calling you. I know some of it stings. But you got to find a way to be better. Mainly because they expect that out of you. And you expect that out of yourself. There are a lot of times when I played basketball or playing golf where people say things and you just got to find a way to be better. Rise above it. I know it is hard. I used to, and listen, I've been guilty, not of the things that Patrick Beverley did, but I've been guilty of going back and forth with people. My motto used to be, when they go low, I take it to the flow. Let's just go. That's not the way to do it. I think what he did was wrong. I think it was very disrespectful. And again, when you do that and you miss your target and you hit an innocent bystander, right? That's a black eye on the league. And now that fan experience is tainted. And he said on his podcast that he was wrong. He shouldn't have done that. Okay. I listen, we're all prisoners of the moment to some degree. And sometimes we let our emotions take over. Listen, you feel the emotion. You process it. You may sit in it for a second, but you got to get out of that. Get to the dressing room and set up a punching bag in there and just let loose. But you can't do that. I thought 4 games was a bit light. As I said, I would have suspended him for the whole year. He probably wouldn't have got the whole year. But you got to give him at least 10 games. And I don't know if any of you remember the Malice in the Palace in Detroit back in the day where the Pistons and the Pacers played. And it was just an all-out brawl in the stands. You can't have that. You cannot have that. If that's what we're doing, I'm good. I can watch it on TV. This is one of the reasons I don't like going to games anyway. Because everybody gets so invested in their team or their player that these things leads to negative interactions with the star player or the players on the bench, or then it carries over in the parking lot and you're fighting another fan and it never ends well. I've seen too many videos of stuff like this going south fast. And I like Patrick Beverley. But in this instance, he was wrong, and he knows it. Next question is from Mike in Utah. Mike writes, Eli, how do you feel about J.J. Redick saying that the Michael Jordan era was watered down and didn't really have great players in it? J.J. Redick I almost said a bad word here. J.J. Redick, while he's a relatively good analyst, he knows the game. I sometimes when he talks about the past generations, I just cringe. J.J. Redick was a good player. He was a decent player. J.J. Redick wasn't a player that you had to have on your team in order to go to the next level. And I'll say it again. What did he do in the league that you remembered? He was a three-point shooter. But in the big moments, he missed. He wasn't clutch. Show me where. And I like JJ. But show me where. And these guys get on TV and talk about Michael Jordan's era being watered down. I think it's ludicrous. And honestly, I don't know if he could have played in that era. If I'm keeping it real. But to say his era was watered down, jeez. Come on, guys. Come on, JJ. What do we say about this era? Udonis Haslem was on ESPN's First Take, and he disagreed with JJ's comments and said, listen, we have the G League and blah, and this and that, and is this generation watered down? I think this generation of athlete, they take more games off. They're not as focused as the players of that era. And I don't like doing that. I don't like comparing eras, but in this case, when J.J. Redick says something like this, you have to address it. And a lot of his former teammates of this era disagreed. So I think some of the takes, he once referenced the old players of the past era as, people off the street, old firemen and police officers playing basketball. It's just so disrespectful. And I think these guys don't do a good job of paying homage to the era that came before them, that set the table for them to do what they're doing and to make the money that they make. So, Mike, I did have a problem. I do hope that J.J. Redick has some time to reflect because, that take wasn't it for sure. All right, let's take a couple more questions. Next question is from Leo in Columbia, South Carolina. And Leo writes, Eli, does LeBron and AD deserve more blame for getting their coach fired? And will the Lakers draft Bronny James? Okay. Yes. LeBron and AD have been really good and consistent at throwing teammates and coaches under the bus. If they don't win, it's everybody else's fault but theirs. They don't take accountability. When they were struggling in the playoffs, doing a few games, one game in particular, it seems like they blamed D'Angelo Russell. Then you see LeBron showing up the coach, with his demonstrative antics, wanting a play review. I'm not a fan of that stuff. It just rubs me the wrong way. And he does that all the time. How do you think the coach feels when that's happening? He knows what's happening in the moment. Well, why don't LeBron just be the coach then? Byron Scott recently said that he should be player coach. I don't think he would do that because he doesn't want to take that responsibility. of owning it. AD, he's had a really good season. I will have to give him that. He played in a lot of games. But when it doesn't go their way, these guys are quick to throw blame at other players and not look at themselves. Will the Lakers draft Bronny James? I'm sure they're going to think about it because I don't think they want LeBron to leave. And I think one of the things LeBron's probably going to put on the table is that you draft my son so I can play with him. Do I think Bronny James can make it in the league? I hope so. I root for him. I want him to make it. I don't want to see him fail. But there's a target on his back. That's LeBron's son. Let's give him the business. Let's see how good he really is. I think it'd be great. I would love to see it happen. And I think it's going to happen. Okay, where are we now? Last question. It's from Chase in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Chase writes, Eli, has the Tiger Woods effect finally run out of steam? It feels like golf is losing a ton of viewers since his accident and him really not playing much anymore. Do you think he really has a chance at any of the majors moving forward? I'm going to answer that last part first. I don't know. I would say no. I don't see him having any chance at winning any of the majors. Here's the thing. Reps are important in golf. You cannot just go out and play in 4 events a year and expect to be competitive or in the mix. You may have a round or two where you show a flash, but unless you've had the reps, no, you can't sustain that. And I don't care how much you play at home. He said this. You need reps. You don't have reps. I don't care what you do on the range. I don't care what you do at your local private golf club and how many rounds you play. So what you shot a 62. How many of those were re-tees? In these majors, it's go time. Stress, preparation. You don't think these other players are working on their games and want to win too? This ain't the 90s. This isn't 2000, early 2000s anymore. He's older. He's had a lot of back injuries. Since the accident, he just hasn't been the same golfer. I always love seeing him out there competing, but I just don't think he's much of a threat anymore. It's all name recognition at this point. I think he'll be I think he'll win more on the senior tour. I do. Has golf run out of steam? Or has the Tiger effect run out of steam? Yes, it's running out of steam. He's still a draw to some degree because people want to see him play and they still hope that he has that magical week where he puts it all together. I'm sure he wants that too. But unless you're playing 10 events a year, I just don't see 4 events. And those 4 events are the most stressful events of the year. Other players are building toward those majors as well. And he just hasn't had the reps. And until he, decides that his leg is to a point where he can play in 8 or 9 events a year, then I would say, he's got a possibility of winning a major, maybe. But you're not just going to show up at Augusta and expect to win. You're not going to show up at the PGA or the U.S. Open or the British Open and expect to win. It's just not going to happen. But I still root for him. I still love seeing him. I still love watching his videos on the practice range. He is Tiger Woods. But the Tiger Woods that we know, that we used to know, is no longer there. And I think you're seeing it in the ratings, and you're seeing the lack of interest in the game from that standpoint. So who knows? Maybe he puts it together and he gets hot, and for a moment we are all taken aback and we are rooting that he's going to win it. We'll see. All right, that's it for questions today, folks, and that is it for the show. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank everybody for their continuous downloads and sharing the show to their friends. We see our numbers continue to move forward and upward, and we are appreciative for that. I love doing this show. It is so much fun answering your questions. It is so much fun talking sports with all of you. Again, we're still working on having a guest on the show. I know you all have sent in emails wanting to be on the show and chat, and we're going to try to make that happen during the summer, and I'm really excited about that. So thank you for the continued support. Listen, get out in your communities and check in on your family and friends. Put a smile on someone's face. It doesn't take a lot of energy to do that at all. It really doesn't. Happy Mother's Day to all the incredible mothers out there. Have a good upcoming week and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Until next week, take care. God bless. I'm out.